Hi guys, it's Charlotte from Timber and Tribe. It's great to see you again. We are going to work on a fun project today for Thanksgiving, and it's our Gobble Gobble sign, and it has these cute little turkeys on it. When you picked up your kit, you probably noticed I put some extra paint colors in there for you. It's because I thought this was a little bit plain, so I thought I would give you a couple other options. They're all kind of fun fall colors. Um, and I did a couple of different techniques on my sign, so I'm going to show you how I got those. Just give you a few fun options. A couple things before you get started is remember to wear some clothes that are older that you don't mind getting some paint on. It will wash out if you put a little soap on it and water and wash it right away, but I would probably wear something that can get a little paint on it. Also, you're going to want to prepare your workspace. I like to put down some brown paper or a garbage bag, just so you don't get paint on your working surface. All the paints that we're working with today are water soluble, so if you get it on your hands, which I have it all over my hands, you can just wash them with soap and water and it'll come off pretty easily. One tip I wanted to share today was that when it's winter and cold, sometimes the blue stencil will not stick super great to the canvas. So a tip I have for that is if you take a hairdryer on low and just kind of aim it at the stencil for a few seconds and kind of rub it down, just makes the stickiness a little stickier and it can seal your edges down better. So go ahead and just check that your stencil is stuck on really nice. And the first thing that we're going to do is seal the edges of the letters and the turkey with some Mod Podge. And that is the little white container that you have. It kind of smells like glue and it's kind of thick like glue. And that's the first thing that we're going to use. So Mod Podge is what we're going to use to seal the edges of the letters and the turkey. And like I said, it's in the little white container that I sent with you. And with this, you just need a tiny bit on your, on the little sponge. And you're just going to do some really, really light layers of the Mod Podge just around the edges. What this does is it just helps seal the stencil to the canvas so that it doesn't leak. Sometimes the paint can bleed through. Okay, so that's going to take a couple minutes to dry. It looks wet when it goes on, and when it's dry, it looks matte and like the same color as your canvas. So now that the Mod Podge is dry, we're going to go ahead and start applying the paint. On this project, I like to do the turkey separate and the letters separate. So you're going to want to use some of the blue tape that I sent. And now I can't remember. Sometimes I put it on the back of the canvas and sometimes I put it on the back of the stencil. I think it's on the back of your stencil. So you take some blue tape and to go around the turkey, I thought it worked best to kind of take some little pieces and we're going to place it around the edges of the turkey to kind of cover up the letters. So now that the Mod Podge is dry, we're going to go ahead and work on the next step of our project, which is the painting. So for this project, I thought it was easiest to paint the turkey separately from the letters. And to do that, we're going to use some of the blue tape that I put into your stencil kit. I'm pretty sure I put it on the back of the stencils. Sometimes I put it on the back of the canvas. So go ahead and grab your tape and I'm going to show you how I taped off the turkeys from the letters. So what I did was I painted my turkeys first. So I tore my tape into small pieces and you want to just get the pieces around the turkey's tail feathers. Oh gosh. Wow, that's sticky blue tape. There we go. So that you don't, so the first time we're only going to get paint on the turkey and not on our letters. So just kind of back it up so it covers the G but leaves the feathers open. And the same thing down here on the bottom. 3 pieces is what I used on my other one, but this one I think I need an extra one just to get right there. Then we're going to do the same thing on the side where the back of the bee is. And for that, you can just use kind of a longer piece of tape. And you want to cover the bee, but not get his beak. What I did was just kind of took my fingernail and pulled it back a little bit so that it didn't cover up the beak. And then if you want, you can put a little bit of tape up here just so you don't get the turkey's legs, but I didn't really have too hard of a time with that. So you've got your paints, and to do the paint, we're going to use these little cosmetic sponges. And I did find for this project, using the smaller end was a little bit easier to control how much paint got on our project. When painting, you always want to use just a tiny bit of paint, especially the first layer, and just really lightly dab it on the letters or the turkey when you're painting. So this turkey, I think I'm going to paint him the dark red color. So I already painted a little bit before, as you can probably see. I decided to do a really fun tie-dye technique, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Or on this gobble, I did just the solid paint and the letters, so it kind of gives you an idea of what both of those look like. I think what I'm going to do is paint my turkey a solid color and then do the gobble letters in the tie-dye. So I'm going to put just a small amount of paint onto my little sponge. And if you think you got too much, you can kind of just dab a little bit off, and you're going to start putting just a little bit of paint on here. And you know what? I used this one before and it's kind of dry. Here's a really good tip. If you need a new sponge, if you just cut the end off, it gives you a brand new one. There, that's better. So I'm just going to get a light coat on here, and I'm being careful not to get it up by the legs of the other turkey. Now, red paint usually takes a couple of layers, so it's not going to be completely filled in the first time, and that's okay. So this time we got just a light layer. I'm going to let that dry for a little bit, and then I'll come back and add another coat so that it makes it a darker, thicker color. Okay, so the first layer of red is pretty dry, so I'm going to go ahead and put another coat on, and you'll see that it's going to start filling in some of those lighter spots. And we can always put a third coat on if we need to. I think that looks pretty darn good though. So I just noticed that up on the row where I did the solid letters, that I want to darken some of those up a little bit. I think the brown looks needs to be filled in a little bit more. So the trick to get more paint on there is you do have to let it dry in between. So if it still looks a little wet, give it a couple more minutes and then you can add some more. Yeah, now I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and start showing you the tie-dye technique on some of the letters down here. So pick 3 colors. These are the 3 colors that I chose to use for the tie-dye. You definitely probably want to use a lighter, at least one lighter color, and I think the yellow is probably the perfect one for that. There really is not a fancy way to do the tie-dye. It's kind of random, but you're going to start just laying down some colors of the paint. I'm going to start with some orange. And again, you just want to use a small amount of paint, but you're just going to kind of randomly place some orange paint. Oop, that was a little too much. Then you'll get a little bit of the red. And again, just kind of randomly place it there. And then I'm going to get some yellow and kind of fill in the spots a little bit. And the thing with tie-dye is that you can make it as dark or as light or as blended in as you want. Up here, I blended it in a little bit more and had kind of some darker spots. On my turkey, I left him a little bit lighter and more yellow. These would be even more lighter. I love how the tie-dye looks because it kind of reminds me of fall leaves a little bit. For this one, I think I want to do a little bit more red. So I'm going to go back and get some red and do a little heavier splotches here and there. And mixing it up is actually good because it blends it in. Now I think just a little orange here and there. You can kind of use the corner of the sponge if you want to. And now I definitely want to lighten it up with some yellow splotches. See how it's just kind of coming together and the colors are getting mixed? Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. I think it's a little yellow there. I'm going to get a little more red. Just kind of look it over. I like it. I think it turned out pretty good. So let's have a look at our turkey. And you know what? That looks like a pretty dark color. After we take the tape off and we do the other letters, we can go ahead and come back just in the middle if we want to and touch it up when it's dry. So I'm going to pull the paint off, the tape off the paint. And I'm going to pull my little edges off over here. And that worked pretty well to not get our G with some paint on it. Now what I'm going to do is do the opposite. We're going to put tape on the turkey and paint our G and our B. But before we put the tape on, I'm just going to let that dry. So it still looks pretty wet. So I'm going to give it a couple more minutes and I'll be right back and we'll finish it all up. All right, so our turkey looks pretty red and it's nice and filled in as a solid color. So we're going to tape off the turkey the opposite so that the G is exposed, but we don't get any paint on our turkey. So again, I find that little pieces work well on this side. And if you use kind of the flat edge, it'll help you get a little straighter of a line. And I think I'm going to do my letters over here in tie-dye as well. And then I was able to reuse this piece of tape. So we're just going to come right up next to the B and cover up the turkey. And we'll do our tie-dye again. I'm going to add a little more paint. Mine's getting a little dry. And I need a little more orange. So again, we're going to take our 3 colors. And you want to start with one of the darker colors. This time I'll start with orange. And we're just going to kind of randomly place it. And then I'm going to add the red. Sometimes using the little edge is easier to get a little more of a dot of paint. And what's nice is you can always go back and kind of even up the colors if you want. So if it's a little too much red, you can tone it down with the green or orange, or too much yellow, the same thing, you can add some more on top. So now we've got our first layers on, and I'm going to kind of compare. This one has a lot of orange and yellow, so I'm going to come back and put a little more red in there. A little more paint. And just kind of blend it in. Kind of like that yellow blob there. Got a little more yellow at the bottom here. All right, I think it looks pretty good. So before we take the stencil off, just kind of look around at your project. Make sure everything looks filled in pretty well. Oh, I know what I forgot to show you. On my turkey up here that I painted solid, I decided to give his feathers like a little bit of definition of the feathers, I guess. So I used the brown paint and I used the small end and I just kind of made a fan shape. So I just kind of tapped like this, just really lightly. Here, I'll show you. Just kind of go with the same direction as those little arrows on the feathers. And if that's too dark, let it dry, and then you can take the orange and just really lightly do that again, kind of like the tie-dye. I actually like how that turned out. And what I mean by that is you can take the small end again and just kind of add a little orange back in if you want kind of more lines. Oh, that looks cool. See, art is so fun, and it's your project, so you get to make it whatever you would like it to be. So when you're done getting everything painted, you want to let it dry a little bit. One tip I will give you is wash your hands before you peel the blue off, because I have smudged my canvas before when I've done that. So I'm going to go do that, and we'll be right back, and we'll do our big reveal for our project. All right, so I got my hands all clean. And I'm going to peel my tape off. And I'm looking at my turkey right there. And I think I'm going to just fill that in a tiny bit. It's a little white on my letter right there. I'm not sure if it'll actually show or not. It just depends on where the stencil is. But otherwise, that looks pretty darn good. So now we're just going to go ahead and peel off the stencil. You just want to do it kind of gently. And it's going to rip and tear, so don't let that worry you. Oh, that turkey looks pretty cool. And I love the tie-dye. So there's some pieces that are stuck here. And what you're going to want to do is use like a toothpick or something that has a sharp end to help you get those pieces out, but make sure that the letters are really dry. A safety pin actually works really well for this, and what you want to do is just kind of put it underneath the letters, underneath the little blue parts, and kind of lift them up so you can pull them off. If you're going to use something sharp, definitely get a grown-up's help. Sometimes the little blue pieces are hard to see. Like I see a tiny one right there. Oh man. Oh yeah, that was by his tail. Oh, then all the bees. Okay, so I've got a little tip for you because I realized that I made a little mistake and I'm going to go ahead and fix it. I ran off my stencil right there with a little bit of orange and just right there a tiny bit. A baby wipe works great for this, or if you don't have a baby wipe, you can use a paper towel with just a teeny tiny bit of soap. Actually, maybe just try it a little wet first. Now, you don't want to get it on your letter, but usually you can lighten it up quite a bit with a baby wipe or a little paper towel. You don't want to take the white paint off, but it'll help just kind of get the color off. That worked pretty well. So you can see I got all those little pieces out, and this is our final project. All right, well, our project is all finished. I love how it turned out. I really like how the tie-dye looks kind of like fall leaf colors. I like the different styles of the turkey that we did, and I even really like the solid colors of the middle line. What's so cool is I sent the kit and I sent the picture and kind of an example of how to do it, but since it's art, it's your creation. So you get to do it however you want, and yours is going to be different than mine, and they're all going to be awesome. So I hope you had a really good time today. I hope you'll join me again for another kit. We have a really fun Christmas gnome coming up in December, and in the spring we have, January we have a snowman. And in the spring, we have a Hello Spring with some spring flowers. And there's one more that I can't remember offhand. Last month, we did a pumpkin that you can personalize with your name. And if you'd still like to do one of those kits, you can always contact me to do that. I would love it if you would go to my Facebook page and give us a like. Um, I would love it too if you'd leave me a picture of your finished project. And if you enjoyed it, you can put it right on my Facebook page and then other people can see it and enjoy it too. My Facebook page is Timber and Tribe, just like the name of my company. If you have any questions, feel free to message me on Facebook Messenger, or you can also just call or text me, and my phone number is 815-988-6482. And again, I'm Charlotte with Timber and Tribe. I hope you had fun. I have a great time, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.